So we're here with another episode of the Brick and Mortar Podcast. I'm joined here by my co-host Nick Hill, as well as Heather. Nick, why don't you get us started?
Okay, Heather, or better known as HouseHunterH,
Hey.
Superhero name.
realtor, investor, international investor, mother, killing it on social media. And we just happened to be talking to you on your birthday week. So happy belated.
Thank you.
You believe you're only 23 years old and successful. It's amazing. You're for anyone that's listening on a Apple or Spotify right now and you can't see Heather, she's got what looks like, all of our fake backgrounds on Zoom, but I'm pretty sure hers is real. So why don't you tell us where you are right now, Heather, and then jump into why you're there.
Well, thank you for the lovely introduction. We are in Turks and Caicos. So this is our family's special place. It all started 10 years ago. The seed is kind of planted when I came here. Oh God, for my 21st birthday. Yeah, it feels like not that long ago, but I guess it's a full decade. So yeah, I came here. I fell in love with I was a bartender at the time. I wasn't even in real estate. Fell in love with the island. I was like, yeah, this will do. Like, I'll live here. I'll work here. I'll own real estate here. The seed was planted, and then coming back, I came back for my 25th. It was the first time I brought my husband, his first time. And I was like, okay, here's the plan. This is what we're going to do. And he's like, whoa. Like, we're here for vacation. We actually looked at properties then. And then an opportunity presented itself last year amidst COVID. Canadian dollar was doing really well. And we bought our first home. And I actually just got the email that we just closed on our second home. So here we are. Yeah.
So building a portfolio in paradise. That could be the name of this episode, actually. That's not bad.
That is that's got a nice ring to it. How do you monetize these assets? Like, you vacation rental or?
Well, it's funny because when the seed was planted, again, I was a kid. I didn't know what the hell I was. Like I said, I was a bartender. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I was happy here and this place was special. So the goal was for it to pay for itself so that we could enjoy our family vacations. And it's turned into a super cash cow. And that's why we've done it again.
We don't even know what cash cows are up here in Canada. I mean, I think everybody's buying in the GTA at a 2 cap. So when you say cash, without divulging too much information, obviously, what kind of yields are you seeing on a property like this, if you don't mind?
So to be fair, we literally just closed in June and we didn't start Airbnb it until October. And then, like, all of our parents and cousins and best friends are like, oh, do we get to enjoy this home? So we haven't had a full year pro forma to really analyze a true portfolio of what this house could be. But cap rate wise, between 7 and 10%. It really depends on the month, but it's, oh my God, it's doing far better than any Canadian investment we've ever held real estate wise.
Good.
That's great to hear. Now let's rewind a little bit, because obviously getting to where you are now with this beautiful background was not the case 10 years ago when you were bartending and just starting out. How did the starting out go? And I know, with our conversations, you've had some other Canadian investments that have done quite well. I know you've gotten your hands dirty. You're also a realtor. Take us back to the beginning and kind of give us the, the Coles Notes version on how you got to Turks and Caicos.
So it's hard to summarize 10 years so quickly, but I used to travel frequently with my aunts who are very close in age. They're like 9 and 11 years older than me. So they're more like sisters. And we used to travel every year for my birthday, being March. Everyone wants to get away from like the shit weather that we have right now. And they always pick the destination. And the one year they're like, Turks and Caicos. I was like, where is this place? They're like, oh, it's beautiful. Best beach in the world. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll show up. I'll pay my way and we'll be fine. So we came. We were here for 10 days and I was smitten from the beginning. Going back home, turned 21. I was a marketing student at George Brown, full-time bartender. My husband, who was my then boyfriend, and I found out we were expecting, and we were like, well, we can't do this in the city. Like, we need family support. We sure as shit can't afford to buy anything here. Let's go back to Cambridge. So that's where we are originally from. We invested pre-real estate. I was, again, just bartending at the time. We invested in a very retro duplex, which we still have to this day. We're renovating it right now. We're not sure what the future holds for that property, but we lived there, rented out, the lower level. We're comfortable. I enjoyed a beautiful year of mat leave with my oldest son. And I was like, okay, now what? Like, what am I gonna do? And I think like through the power of HGTV, I was like, yeah, I can do this. Anyone can do this if you know. I ended up taking a leap, which was very hard because we were tight. Like even with that rent income, like my husband was an apprentice electrician at the time, and he was working 6-7 days a week in some cases, and I was bartending at night. I don't know, you guys aren't from the area, but I was bartending at like a student nightclub. So it wasn't like great money by any means, but it was some spending money for us. And my husband was like, why don't you just do it? Like, you're not going to go, are you going to go back to school? Or are you going to do a commute to Toronto? So I did it. I got my real estate license, and then I found out I was pregnant again. So we were like, fuck, can't get a break here. So I became a mom to two, like 8 months into real estate, and it was very difficult. And from then on, kind of just, I guess, we ended up relocating to KW, which isn't far from Cambridge. The market there boomed. I became somewhat of a resource for people in the area, or people like moving to the area. I'm like, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm like, no bullshit. Like what you see is what you get. I'm going to be honest with you, especially if you know nothing about the area, or, schools, or what's meant for, like, what's going to work well for you and your family. So I think people like know and they trust me. So kind of IG, I know you guys have your feelings about social media, but IG was where I kind of grew organically within the community, and that's where like 90% of my business comes from. So we invested in a couple of more properties. One was a beautiful piece of real estate in Uptown Waterloo, like beautiful home, and 4 units, and it was just so much work. Like it was not passive. Passive is the opposite of what it was. And it was old, and it was always something. And then you got like the one shit tenant who's like pissing off the neighbor. So we held it for 5 years, and we did far better than my projections were 5 years previously when we purchased it, that we were able to sell that property and then buy this one here in Turks. So this is how we got here.
I love that. Dan and I are we're both Guelph graduates, and have helped investors secure some assets up in that area. So yeah, pretty familiar with the types of bars that are in the student areas, and yeah,
it's not my cup of tea, but I mean,
yeah, it was a long time ago. Whatever. Yeah, I love that story. I'm always interested in people's first few years in real estate, because those first few years are such a grind, and whether or not it's real estate or any type of business, it's just so difficult. And I think that there's a lot of perseverance that you need to be able to continue through it, and then throw a couple unexpected kids in the mix, and you're in your early 20s. That's true perseverance and grit, which I think you really do need in this industry.
Thank you. And I couldn't agree with you more. I always say, like, you have to, and this is even with my clients, you have to be prepared to eat shit. Like, success is not like overnight. You have to understand clearly what your goals and your boundaries are too. And for me, in the first 2 years, I was eating shit. I was working with people who I would never work with again, who did not value me or my time, and I think when I had that mindset shift of working with people who want to work with me, who I can best serve, and the dynamic of those relationships, many of my clients have become friends. Like, I work with people who, again, know, like, and trust me, but it's 2 ways. And I think in the beginning, like, no matter if it's real estate, any industry, investing in real estate, you have to be prepared to roll up your sleeves and eat shit and do the work. And over time, I mean, hopefully it pays off, and hopefully you find your, what jives and works for you. But it is, again, you see these reality shows where it's like, yeah, it does not look like that. They're not showing like the sleepless nights, the fires we put out, in the back end that our clients will never know about. They will never know about those things. And I think, it's very easy to get your real estate license in Ontario. And that's why we have so many realtors. I mean, a good portion of them aren't doing shit, but people get all dazzled by like the market. So, it's so hot and it's a great time to be in real estate. And it's like, oh man, you don't know how far we're driving. You don't know how many months it takes to make one check with, one given set of clients. And that's if they don't change their mind and decide, hey, we're going to go out west or go out east. It happened a couple of times to me a couple of years ago when COVID and the pandemic hit. So, Yeah, you got to have a lot of grit and a lot of integrity too. You don't ever want to compromise who you are, what your values are, no matter what industry you're in. Sorry,
Yeah,
our neighbors are working on the deck.
All good. That's all right.
Good timing, guys.
You said something earlier, and I can't, I'm going to paraphrase, but it was like the power of HGTV or something like that. And, you know, Dan and I always joke about that because real estate in general, whether you're flipping or you're an agent or whatever, it's become so romanticized that all I need to do is, be good looking and put on nice clothes and get some headshots. And then boom, the phone starts ringing and hey, like there's never any issues with a construction project and I'm making
It's like
100 grand every flip.
Yeah, but I also think a function of that is that we've been in like a ripping bull market for 26 years, right? Like literally the average new entrant to the market hasn't even seen a bear market since they were born, right? So it's easy for everybody to look like a genius when times are good. I think, this is the first time we've had a rising interest rate environment, since like pre-08, I think, or I guess the last one would be 2016, 2017, which
yeah, I think it's 2017.
And they ripped it right back after they bottomed out the market after the non-resident speculation tax in Ontario, right? So, yeah, I guess I'm just saying it's easy for everybody to look like a rocket scientist in a bull market, right? I'm very interested to see what happens in the next couple of years when, I think that there's going to be some pain, but I also think in the fullness of time, things will likely just trade sideways, right? What do you recommend, I guess, from an agent perspective, from an investor perspective, from a contractor perspective, for people to do to kind of weather the storm where the market isn't pulling you up indefinitely?
Well, and back to the interest rates, like how much shit out there is just clickbait. Like interest rates have not gone up. We are due for an increase in interest rates. They were slashed down when the pandemic hit to next to nothing. It was basically like cheaper to get a mortgage than anything else. So for me, I think people are just in the state of panic. There's so much that's happening economically and politically that are affecting people's decision making. And I do think it comes down to fear. A lot of people are kind of paralyzed by fear. I have clients 2 months ago, they would have been jumping at the opportunities on the market then, but now there's like so many options that they can't even make a decision. With respect to investors, buyers, realtors, I think it depends on what your end game is or your long game. Like, are you in it for a 5-year buy and hold? Are you in it for a flip? Are you in it, until retirement? Is this your retirement savings plan? So based on the individual's goals, I think that would really depend on the advice that I would give. If people, want to hold something for a couple of years, they're not sure where they'll be geographically in the next 2 to 3 years, then maybe you wait out, the next month or two and see how things play out. If you're in it to win it, then you're buying and holding no matter what. 20 years from now, real estate's going to be higher than what it is today in 2022.
That's interesting though, because I just closed on a property yesterday, and the realtor who we bought it, I think it was like a 6 or 7 month closing. So purchased it that long ago. And I'm a buy and hold guy. I'm proudly on team never sell. I used to wear a t-shirt that said that on it. And I don't think money's made in the selling of real estate, but nobody ever went broke making a dollar either. Right. So the realtor approached us saying, hey, this property is worth probably double what you paid for it. This is 6 months ago. It's obviously a fringe market, but, and I'm like, maybe we should dump this thing and reallocate, right? Because I do think that there's going to be some greater opportunities around the corner as well. What goes into your decision making when you're like, because you said you exited one of your duplexes, or I think to allocate capital to Turks. Like, is that more of a qualitative decision, or is it deal by deal? Like, so you can't just grow a portfolio forever, especially we're very lending limited in Canada as well, right? Like Big Six doesn't want to touch people who have more than 6, 7, 8 properties, right? Or
usually 4 or 5 actually. Yeah.
So the particular property, it's actually the only one we've ever sold that funded Turks. And for me, it was like, am I selling or am I trading? I feel like I leveled up with my portfolio because if I was talking to a client and that was their property, I probably would have been like, no, you should just hold it. Like it's in a stellar location and the people who bought it are just so lovely. And I know they're going to preserve that home. Like I said, it was not a passive investment property. It was 120 years old, multiple tenants, a lot of loopholes we had to go through. So something that most people don't know is that in the city of Waterloo, you actually have to hold rental licensing per unit. In Cambridge, Kitchener, Guelph, it's kind of a free for all. And in Waterloo, in order to crack down on the slumlords in like 2019, I think it was 2018, 2019, they implemented this licensing program. So whether or not it is a legal duplex, triplex, fourplex, or here's the kicker, if it's a single family home and you buy it for your kids to go to school and your kids live in one room and they have 2 roommates, you still need to have that rental licensing. And the city of Waterloo, they're not friendly about it. And it's not that it's costly, it's timely. And being in this industry, you guys know time is of the essence. And I just did not have time for that shit. I also was not willing to pay a property manager for a job that I could do. So we went through a lot of like licensing hiccups. They did not make things easy on us. It was always like something like, man, it's like a piece of conduit. I'm like, a piece of conduit? Like, my husband's an electrician. I'll get it here in a minute. No. We're going to come back in 2 months. We're going to give you 2 months to do it. I'm like, I just want it done now. So logistically, it was a bit of a nightmare dealing with the city of Waterloo, fire department, everybody else who had to come through. It was an old property. So,
are they pretty hardcore on enforcement there? Like, I mean, they are, eh? Huh, interesting.
They came. I mean, I think it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. We purchased the property and
people as well.
Yeah, we purchased the property in 2016, and I was like, we'll see how hardcore they are about this licensing. And then I think 6 months they came knocking on the tenant's door. Tenants gave them our contact info. They called me, and I was like, oh wait, what? We got to do what? I didn't know. Can you help me? And kind of killed them with kindness. We, had this grace period to get everything in line, and initially it was fine, but you're doing that annually. And oh my God, when we switched ownership, it was those poor people who bought it. Like there was no. I would think the city and the fire department, the fire chief were just so unreasonable with their expectations, like drywall needing to be mud. I'm like, this is cosmetic finishes here now that we're talking about. So they got really nitty gritty. For us, the timing presented itself in this way. Turks was always the end goal. And John Street, which was our property that we owned, was the means to getting here. So we held it for 5 years, we put in a lot of work. Like we had one tenant who like falsified documents. His employment info was falsified. He paid people to give him the references. Anyways, he's a professional tenant. Wow. First and last got in, second month, rent bounced, third month it bounced. So I was like, oh, I got to get a paralegal. And I called a paralegal up, Lisa, who I work closely with whenever need be. And she was like, wait, what's his name? She's like, I just kicked this guy out in July. I'm like, oh dear God. So, we went through the process, which was backlogged at the time. He got a free ride for like 6 months. We show up with the sheriff with the eviction notice, come to find out he's actually subletting the bedrooms of this place. So he's making money and then not paying us, defaulting. And my husband's like, I'm going to kill this guy. I'm like, don't worry about it. It's just business. And it definitely got under his skin because we loved that property and he was making it difficult on us. We were definitely not cash flowing when he was there. And, finally got out. Turns out we had it was like a quirky property where there was a loft with a very tight stairwell. So we actually had the loft part completely furnished so that it was like ease of use for tenants moving in and out. It was just like a bonus rec room. But he sold off all the furniture that was up there. I'm like, oh my God. So oh yeah, we had a routine. It was like Monday to Friday for a good month. We were picking up our kids after school, going to John Street, cleaning it out. We had like a bin dropped off. It was like a dumpster full of shit. And our kids learned what sweat equity is. They were young and they were like, oh, we're going to John Street. We're going to John Street. We'd order pizza, set up the iPad, some coloring books. My husband and I would get to work. So it was, now there are great tenants there, but it was just a lot of work. And again, for us, I never imagined the return that we would make in such a short period of time. COVID hit, market was, uncertain at that time, but the US dollar, it had arguably never been a better time to convert your Canadian to USD in like a decade. So I was like, I think this is the time. It was also like a double whammy because everyone was leaving the island here. So the house that we bought, actually a gentleman was doing a rent to own and he defaulted on, the rent to own program and was out quickly. The house sat vacant for 8 months. We threw in a lowball offer and then another lowball offer and we secured it. So timing on both ends in like the Ontario Southwestern market, KW specifically, the, Canadian dollar performing so well and then taking advantage of a really good opportunity here got us to where we wanted to be. I can totally respect the buy and hold and never sell. We're kind of torn right now with another property we have because we got 2 boys and there are 2 units. And I'm like, that's it. That's what they get, right? Like that's their education savings plan. That's their, what's going to pay for the wedding or whatever, maybe they're going to go to Europe and find themselves for a year and that's how we're going to fund it. But it's there. And right now we're just seeing how well our international investment is doing, Airbnb specifically, that it's getting our gears turning as like, okay, maybe like, maybe we're done in Southwestern and maybe it's not all in Turks, but maybe now it's Portugal where we're both from. Maybe we're going to do something there. So we're kind of excited about the unknown of the future and what's coming up. Do I think I'll continue buying in KW? Probably not. I think I'm tapped out. I think it's very hard for me to yield any cash flow. I mean, breaking even, you're like, yes, look at this. Sending it over to clients, being like, this is a good opportunity. It breaks even. But we're definitely not flippers. We're not in it to flip it. We're in it for like the long run. And I think we're kind of maxed out what we can do and what we want to do back home.
Yeah, I think it's like differences in market maturity as well, right? Like the cyclicality. I think it's, it feels pretty clear that, Ontario's a very late cycle and there's consequences that come with that, but, also opportunity. But, an area like where you're describing, and, I have a lot of clients doing the similar things in Costa Rica as an example, stuff like that. Yeah. Interesting to see, right? What are the tax implications? Have you figured that one out yet? Like, how does that?
Yes.
I mean, sounds like you figured out how to become an accidental Forex trader in the process of purchasing the house. So I'm assuming that you also know the cross-border tax. I guess the accounting issues that are associated with it.
I just wish we had someone who was like a mentor or like a coach and could be like, okay, this is how we're going to do it, because it is so scary. And we weren't able to get a mortgage here. So literally all of our profits were wire transferring over to the Turks and Caicos. And the woman at the bank is like, I'm going to press the button. And once that money's gone, it's gone. And my husband and I are like, lady, just press the fucking button. Like, we have to send it, just send the money. I remember we left the bank and we went and bought ice cream with our kids and we didn't even talk. My husband and I were just like sick to our stomach. We couldn't find the words, but yes. So it is interesting. I have a colleague who's already purchased here. Oh no, sorry guys, 1 second. I'm going to just decline this call.
Just loop them in.
Take it, patch them in. Yeah.
It's my sister. She's probably calling me to ask for something. That's for sure. Let me just open you back up here. Sorry. It's so annoying. I put it on airplane mode because I have like a business coach I meet with weekly and I'm always getting cut off by the calls that I receive. So I put it on airplane mode, hoping that it would reject all calls, but apparently they're just diverting to my laptop. So apologies. I'm going to tell her, don't call me. Yeah. So I have a colleague who's actually already came down and met with our realtor and purchased a property here. And funny enough, they don't know when their closing date is. I guess that's an indication of island time. I have another colleague here right now. We actually met up on the beach yesterday. She's here with her family. They just sold a stellar property in Blue Mountain and now they're looking to take the profits over here. More of a lifestyle investment for them as well. I have other friends who just sold like 3 properties downtown Hamilton and they're coming back on April 11th. And I was like, oh shit, I may as well just come with you and give you guys a tour of the land. So a lot of things happening, a lot of inquiries coming my way, tax implications. So here is what makes Turks and Caicos such a lucrative opportunity for someone is that there are no property tax, there's no income tax, and there's no capital gain tax. Keep in mind, you have to reside in the Turks and Caicos for at least 6 months in order to qualify for all of these tax benefits.
But there's
CRA,
also there's no debt, right? So like there's no leverage either. Like you can't get a mortgage.
Well, initially, so I'll give you the full thing. So initially, our first property here, we could not qualify for a mortgage because it was very, we maybe could have, but it was very short closing and we knew we had to get to work on the property in order to get it up and running for peak season. So in order to get a mortgage, it was like, they said it was like a 6-month turnaround for the approval, not even for the funds, just to find out whether or not you're able to get financing. Right. And then they were like, oh, there's this guy named Keith on the island. He does private lending. And I was like, no, I don't even want to go that route. So what we did is we leveraged our Canadian asset, brought it here. Now with our second property, we were able to pay for it in cash as well. But now what we're doing is we're getting it's a mortgage Yeah, it's a component. It's almost like a HELOC, but it's not a HELOC. So we're getting an appraisal done and we already have the approval. We just need the appraisal and some, a couple of other documents in order to actually be given, they're going to cut us a check for X amount so that we can actually pay off the second property that we bought and then kind of reimburse ourselves so that we will actually have a mortgage component here in the next couple of months for our second purchase. But it is very hard initially. If you do not have any capital in Turks, it's very hard initially to just get a mortgage if you're not going the private lending route, from my knowledge anyways. But here's like the kicker. So if you are a Canadian resident and you plan on coming to Turks for 2 months a year, you're definitely going to have to claim your income, get an international accountant and pay your taxes accordingly because they will find that money. But if you are here for 6 months and a day and you're prepared to give up your OHIP, there is, a way where you're not paying any tax on the income that you yield here, which is a significant amount. I know when my husband and I were here over the summer, we met so many people who found out he was an electrician. They're like, what are you doing working in Canada, man? Like you can be making like 350, 400K a year tax free. And I thought, oh well, shit, that's a great idea, honey. Why don't you think about that? But from a lending perspective, it is very complex and it's quite frankly ass backwards. Like, for example, if you have a HELOC back home and you have nothing on it, the bank doesn't scrutinize you when you're going to Scotia or CIBC or RBC. They look at that as, okay, like they have the available funds. Here, if you have a HELOC and there's no balance on it, they actually factor that in as maxed out. So if you have a HELOC of like 250, they're looking at that as maxed out. So it actually hurts you. So it's quite frustrating, the process, because I don't know if it's a mix of island time. Everything here in Turks has to go back to Bahamas for approval. And something that is a little confusing is when you're landing, in Provo, you see Scotiabank, CIBC, BMO, RBC, all these Canadian institutions, and you're like, sick, this is a slam dunk. I'm going to be able to qualify for a mortgage without issue. They're just going to talk to each other and, get all the assurances they need. And there's no affiliation. I don't even know how they pull it off, but there is no affiliation whatsoever with the Canadian bank.
I think it's like Turks is like a offshore financial, whatever they call it, right? Like in what
Tax shelter type thing.
Yeah, like
what's that? Sorry, Nick, what did you say?
Is it like it's kind of like it's kind of like Panama, where it's like a bit of a tax shelter type?
It's a laundromat. It's a laundromat.
Yeah,
Most
of the islands are like that, right?
I mean, not for me. This is my real money, right? Like I'm gonna pay for it.
The thing is, like those things are technically legal, right? Like when people are offshoring, so it's like even if it was for you, you could probably say that, right?
Well, it's crazy because when we were talking with trust me, when I say the due diligence, I was like, I had my lawyer back home creeping my lawyer here because my lawyer here is actually Canadian and he's super overqualified to be doing these little real estate transactions for us. But I wanted to make sure we were doing everything legitimately, especially when it's internationally. And the legal loophole is that if you were here and it doesn't have to be 6 months consecutively, if you were here just for 6 months out of the year and you're prepared to give up, whatever pension or OHIP you have back home, and in some cases it may be worth it for people to give that up in order not to pay tax on the income here. But something you need to know about taxes is because there is no income tax, the cost of goods imported are taxed incredibly high. It's 37.5%. So not only are you paying for the shipping to get things to this remote island, you're paying duties and taxes of 37.5%. And I'm going to tell you, customs, they are not friendly here. You almost have to be miserable to work in customs. It's very hard to hurt my feelings. Okay. I would go into customs daily and I would say, like, please help me understand your system. Like, you have to have a separate customs broker. It's like a nightmare. And I would walk up to the parking lot and my husband would be like, we good? I'm like, no, man, we are not good. Like, we have to go back and get a signature, like an initial it was just, it's a shit show, and everything could be so streamlined. They just don't have those systems in place. So that was difficult dealing with customs, and obviously it hurts paying, $4,000 for a shipping container and then paying those duties and taxes here as well. But I think it's an equal trade-off when you're not paying capital gains and depending what your future holds, right? It has to be for the right person. If you're going to be only here bouncing back and forth, then you definitely need to look at getting into an international accountant like we had to do.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth it in the end. And I just want to take a second to unpack a few of the things you said. Going back a few minutes, you had mentioned that, just right place, right time kind of thing. And I want to say probably not right place, right time, because you had spent at that point, almost 10 years getting to that right place, right time. So,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, true. Like, so when my husband came, we came for my 25th birthday. So 6 years ago, we came, and it was his first time here. And I was like, this is the plan. This is what we're going to do. We went and looked at a property, and he was like, okay, like, the wheels are turning. He's like, we are so over leveraged. Like, when do you think this is happening? Like, we had just actually bought 2 properties in KW within, it wasn't planned, but right opportunity presented itself. So we had just bought 2 properties back to back within like 60 days. And he was like, we're like, it's a nice idea. I'm game, but not right now. And I'm very stubborn. So I was 6 years of being stubborn, I guess. And I mean, it definitely was something that I have been manifesting for a very long time. But like, manifesting isn't just having this thought, it's thinking about it all the time and almost becoming obsessed with your goal and then doing the work and making it happen. So yeah, the stars couldn't have lined any better for us. Absolutely.
I love that. And then the other thing is, you saying, I wish we had a mentor. I wish I had someone that could coach me through all this. I mean, I tell everybody, whether it's in real estate or mortgages or investing or any kind of entrepreneurship, find people that are doing it better than you and copy them. And I mean, that's not my advice. That's old advice from every successful person ever. But the coolest thing about what you're doing right now is you didn't have that. So guess what? Now you're that person. You're the person that's going to be mentoring people. You're the person that's going to be coaching people. You're the person that of all the Canadians, and it's already happening. How do I get down to Turks? I want to buy a property down there. I want to have this. I want to have that. Who are they going to come to now? Right. So that could be a whole nother
a lot
business.
of fucking pressure, Nick. Thank you for all of that. No, I mean, like, truly, like, I would love to be that person. I would love to be, that in that position of authority, or people are like, well, like, I'm not that smart. Okay. Like, if I can fucking do this, anyone can do this. Oh my God. People do cuss in the podcast. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, we'll just bleep all this out. Half of it'll be bleeped out. No, I'm kidding.
I was unmuted. I said, fuck yeah.
Oh, okay. So like, I mean, there's nothing special about me. Like, and it's definitely, you don't come from money. I don't come from money. This isn't a handout. This isn't, my intelligence got me here, maybe to a certain extent, but if I can do it, there is no way that someone else can't do it. And maybe it's not, like you said, Dan, like maybe it's Costa Rica, maybe it's Nicaragua. Our best friend's in Nicaragua right now, and he's like sending me places all the time. And I'm like, just do it. Just, what are you thinking about? I think the biggest obstacle people have.
That's profound advice. Honestly, that's the profound advice, is just doing it, right? Like,
nobody wants people psych themselves out before they've even like fucking started. I'm like, what are you? And I think it's just the fear of judgment of others, or like, what if it doesn't go? Yeah. Oh yeah. And what if it doesn't go right? And what if I'm making the wrong decision? I'm like, you will never know if you don't actually make the decision. So you can be in this constant state of oh yeah, I know that. Like, I kind of put myself into situations where I'm like, well, it's figure outable. I mean, I'm not the first person to get it done. So if Bob can do it, why can't I do it? So I think fear paralyzes people's decision making when they're buying and selling, when they're investing overseas, when they're thinking about getting into a career in real estate, whatever it may be. And my advice is just fucking YOLO, man. Like, and maybe it's easy for me to say, I'm 31 years old. I could just royally fuck up for the next 10 years and then still have enough time to figure it out. But I want to be able to take those chances on myself, that if I do fuck up, then I have to figure it out. At least I took a chance on me and not somebody else. So yeah, people just, our buddy, I'm like, just do it. He's like, oh, it's a lot of money. I'm like, you're going to need a home. Just like, what's the alternative? Going back home and spending, $750 on a 2-bedroom condo. So yeah, people are definitely paralyzed by fear. I think anyone can do it. I mean, easier said than done. Obviously, you need money to make things happen, and you need the knowledge. But I mean, in the world of YouTube and Google, everything is at your fingertips. So when people say, "Well, I don't know," or like, "How do you?" I'm like, you fucking Google it. You Google it, and then you figure out, whether or not that's legitimate. You do your research. You make sure you fact check, and you contact the professionals in the industry to do due diligence. And then you just kind of got to jump. Like, I mean, when we sent that wire transfer, my son saw the receipt and he was like, he said something like, you guys sent $100 to someone you don't even know? And I'm like, bro, you have no idea what mom and dad just did. And, the woman at the bank is like, do you know who you're sending it to? I'm like, yeah, it's our lawyer. Have you met him? No. You got a property? Have you seen it? Like, virtually. Have you been there? No. How do you know it's real? I don't, but like, I got to find out. So it could have been easily the worst decision we ever made, but we did a lot. I called up.
Same.
Yeah, I called up my lawyer. So it's like UK law here. So I called up my lawyer and I was like, this is what we're about to do. I'm shitting myself. Like we have to send the money, and it's different. It's not Scotiabank's money, right? If it was a loan and Scotiabank maybe or whatever, it's on Scotia. It was all of our money. Like we were terrified. So I'm calling my lawyer, who's a very good friend of mine. I'm like, listen, Bob is his name. I'm like, Bob, like what? Like, I need your help. So he's looking up our lawyer. Our lawyer still sits on the Bar Association in Canada in 3 different provinces. He's like done international investing in the UK and Australia, and now he's landed himself here in Turks. I went like way back with our realtor, looking into our realtor. I got her to send me drone footage. I wanted to make sure like it was a real house and I wasn't just looking at still images. But we had those assurances from our lawyer back home, which made us feel confident moving forward. But there was still the what if at the back of my mind, right? Like what if this doesn't pan out? I know when you're investing, perhaps Nicaragua would be one of those places where our friend he's from Nicaragua. I'd be a little bit more skeptical. I had a client who sold her home over the pandemic and moved to Costa Rica, and she purchased the property outright, but she didn't purchase it until she was actually there. She was actually already renting the property that she ended up purchasing. So it's a little bit different. We didn't have the freedom. I mean, basically it was hard to leave Canada at the time, but we couldn't like bounce on a flight and then come back. The flight's only 3 hours, 45 minutes. I mean, in today's time, we can do that. We can jump on a flight and then be back home, same time zone, no issue within 2 to 3 days. But then it was like you have to isolate for 14 days. Guys, I'm so sorry. Hey, oh my God, is that ringing going to happen when you guys post the podcast?
I can't
hear the ringing. I did hear the guy building the deck, and he actually he started off, he was doing like maybe one board every 10 minutes, and now he's like got his cadence up to maybe every 2 minutes. So
I'm so sorry. Hang on, bear with me a minute. It's my
we're gonna wrap up here soon anyway, I think. So if you
it's my sorry, it's my assistant.
Oh, no worries. I think yeah. I just wanted to ask one more thing, and then we can kind of get to our kind of closing remarks. I know you had said, you're looking at another piece of property in Turks, but you're also an agent with EXP, correct?
Yeah.
So what is the play for you on the island being a real estate agent and an investor?
Sure. So in a perfect world, I am here trading real estate and I have the freedom to bounce back and forth. So to preface, I'm going on year 8. Yeah. So 5 years at Remax, which I'm a great broker, very nice, but it was not for me at all. And I very quickly discovered that. And then I found EXP. I know everyone has this like notion about EXP people finding you. And I found EXP on my own. And I was like, oh yeah. No, so it's a cloud-based brokerage, and there is like a revenue share aspect to it, which was not what actually attracted me to the brokerage. But I mean, same like Keller Williams has they have profit share, which is quite different actually. But EXP is a new cloud-based brokerage. We're like 12 years old. We are international. Not really cutting in. Sorry, guys. I'm back at it. Stop. Yeah, so we're like in Portugal now, which is super attractive for us because, again, my husband and I are both Portuguese and we have a lot of family back home, and being able to go and trade in Portugal would be sick. We're also in States, obviously, in a number of other countries, but I have colleagues right now. We just launched in the Dominican. Colleagues looking to bring EXP to Jamaica, and I would love to be going to bring EXP to Turks and Caicos. Just got to get the right people on board with the idea, because I'm already finding myself, like I said, our friends sold their place here. So I'm working on a referral system with our agent here right now. But I have friends who sold their properties and are like, oh, we're coming down April 11th to the 13th. And I'm like, shit, we have an opening at the house. Don't book anything, stay at the house. And like, where are you coming with? And I'm like, oh, damn it, yes, I guess I'm coming with. So I'm doing, a lot of the back end work with the finances and the due diligence that comes with a lot of these properties that are being picked up are not already existing Airbnbs. So I'm having to look at the performance of other Airbnbs, what their vacancies look like, assuming that the bookings are not for personal use and they're actual bookings. And obviously I'm taking an average of 5 to 6 properties. So yeah, I mean, I would love to be here on a more part-time basis, like 6 months and a day for the year. I don't know really how crazy of an idea that is and how quickly something like that can happen. And I know my husband definitely doesn't want to put down permanent roots. We want to have the ability where, we kind of have Airbnbs all over the world that we can take advantage of, and that I can trade in different countries, because that is the ultimate end goal, is that I can be in different places, working with different people, which is so humbling, and doing different things, and be away from the snow. So that is what we are working towards right now.
Yeah. Am I allowed to steal that dream? Because that's pretty fucking awesome.
You absolutely can. Shit, man, you're a mortgage broker. You can work from anywhere in the world. What are you talking about?
You have to finish
You
up
don't even have to open a door. What's that?
He's got to finish up his contract as my co-host first.
Oh, shoot.
Minor
But
non-compete.
like, I think the big thing is that COVID has taught us that like we can do nearly anything remotely except for actually opening the doors. And I mean, that is a very small part of what we do in real estate. And I think you can agree, there's a lot of trust that's established before we're even going into a property, and really honing in on what your clients' needs are, whether they're resi investors, commercial investors, first-time buyers. The market can be overwhelming for anyone, whether or not you're a first-time buyer or you're first time selling in 20 years. So I've never had more Zoom calls. And I swear the last 8 months the Zoom calls have just like picked up drastically. And again, like you still need to be present. Doing mortgages, on the other hand, I think that gives you a lot more freedom geographically where you're working out of, at least for a couple months a year.
That was by design. Yeah. Okay. I feel like that was like the fastest 45 minutes we've ever had. We're gonna have to have you back on, and Heather, we both think. I mean, I spoke very highly of you beforehand, and I know that you kind of have some stuff in the works, podcast wise, content wise, etc.
Yeah.
We want to do a little plug for that, but Dan and I would love to have you back on, and I think that there'd be a lot of value into having you kind of collaborate with us on this podcast and on this platform again. Maybe I know you're a big supporter of women in real estate and try to increase that representation. So is there anything you want to say to our audience before we hop off?
Well, to you too, thank you so much for thinking of me. I know Nick and I connected over Instagram through a reel. Funny enough, here I am, I'm like making reels. My husband's looking at me like, God, you look like an idiot. But through Instagram, I think we hit it off, and I think we need more like genuine connections, which is crazy that they're coming from such a superficial platform. But I think there are a lot of good people on social, and I thank you guys for taking the opportunity to meet with me. And hello to all of your listeners and your followers. And yeah, I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and I will definitely have you back, I will definitely come back whenever you guys will have me.
You can have us back on your podcast. That's fine. Yeah, thank you.
You know what? I was like, we can even do like a retreat over here. I have an excuse for a business trip.
My mom's a realtor, and she's retiring, and one of her primary objectives is to start running retreats. So it's funny that you mentioned that.
Well, there's this woman I admire out of Vancouver. My business coach actually was one of their speakers, and they had this like retreat in Vancouver, and all female driven, all female realtors. And I thought, shit, so cool if I could do it in Turks. So I've already got my business coach on board to come here. I'm like, we just need someone to do breath work, and then we need a chef, and we need all of these things, because I think like retreats are incredible, but when you can combine something like wellness as well as business and show that, yeah, there is a happy medium and you can have it all with boundaries, that's pretty stellar. So I hope to be able to host some type of mastermind retreat in the near future.
Absolutely love it. And by the way, one of my old business partners is a chef on island. So
I was just gonna say that. So crazy. There's so many Canadian expats here. I've yet to meet an American expat. It's like all Canadians and then Europeans. But yeah, your buddy's a chef, so we'll have to get well acquainted, and maybe I'll get that little family discount. And maybe that's how you get yourself here, right? Is you're just like the sous chef in the kitchen.
I'll be the dishwasher.
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
Heather, where can people get in touch with you, find out more about you, reach out?
Sure thing. So I'm on IG at HouseHunterH, and then sold at HouseHunterH.com and HouseHunterH.com.
Love it. Yeah, we'll put those in the show notes. I feel like we could have talked for another hour. I have so many more questions, but we'll have to have you back on.
For sure.
I kind of want only in Turks and Caicos, because I'm like literally feeling like nice and warm looking at your background.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I know it's just if there was like a definition of depressing weather, it's like what's happening right now. I'm like, there's not even sun. Like there's no sun, but I know today's going to be warmer, so at least you guys will get those positive temps.
Yeah, for those listening, it's still in it's the last day of March, and yeah, the weather has been a little bit of a fickle bitch right now. So On that note, Heather, thanks so much.
Thank you guys.
Can't wait to see what you can do in the next couple of years. And yeah, we'll definitely be in touch.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Take care.
Bye.